Imagine for a moment that you were Pontius Pilate, the man who, in front of an uproaring crowd, found himself having to decide the fate of a man named Jesus. History tells us that Pilate washed his hands. But did you know that many years after the crucifixion, Pilate wrote a letter to the Emperor Tiberius? A letter in which he revealed his deepest thoughts, his doubts, his regrets. But what did he really write? What did he see with his own eyes? Today, I will take you on a journey to discover this mysterious document, hidden for centuries, that could change the way you see one of the most famous episodes in history. Before continuing, I invite you to subscribe to the channel so as not to miss other fascinating and meaningful stories. Pilate's letter begins with a greeting to the Emperor Tiberius and a description of Jesus that is striking for its detail. There has appeared in our days a man of great virtue called Jesus Christ, who is still living among us, Pilate writes. Among the Gentiles, he is accepted as a prophet of truth, but his own disciples call him the Son of God. He raised the dead and healed every kind of disease. Try to imagine Pilate sitting in his palace, in Rome or in Caesarea, taking the pen with a perhaps trembling hand and beginning to write. He knows that every word he puts on that sheet of paper can change its fate forever. Pilate's description of Jesus is as fascinating as it is detailed. He describes him as a tall man with brown hair that reaches his shoulders, parted in the middle in the manner of the Nazarene. His face is pure, without blemishes or wrinkles, with a thick, forked beard of the same color as his hair. His eyes? Grey, clear, and quick to rebuke, but capable of inspiring fear and love at the same time. Can you imagine how engaging and charismatic this man must have been? Pilate describes him as someone whose gaze can penetrate the soul, a presence impossible to ignore. If you find these revelations surprising, leave a comment below. I would love to know what you think about this perspective on Christ's crucifixion. But let's get back to the letter. Pilate tells of the day of the trial, a moment we know from the Gospels, but which here takes on a new and disturbing light. I asked him what religion he was, Pilate writes. And Jesus replied, I am a king, but my kingdom is not of this world. Pilate, perhaps for the first time, feels the weight of his actions. When he asks Jesus if he is a god, the answer is powerful. You say it because I am the truth and the life. Words that echo in the mind of the Roman governor, words that seem to come from a place far away from first-century Palestine. In describing the crucifixion, Pilate tells of events that shocked the entire empire. At the very hour he was crucified, there was darkness over the whole world. The sun was darkened at midday, the stars appeared, and the moon seemed to turn to blood. Pilate says that, gripped by terror, he washed the blood of this righteous person from his hands. A gesture that perhaps was not just a political symbol, but an act of desperation. Imagine that moment. The sudden darkness, the stunned crowd, the heart beating fast. Pilate, like you, was a human being. Did he perhaps feel the weight of that action like a millstone on his conscience? But there is more. Pilate also describes his feelings toward Jesus before the condemnation. He confesses that he never found a rebel in him. Rather, he describes him as an innocent man, a man of peace. He tells how he gave him freedom to preach, to move freely among the people, because he considered him a friend of the Romans more than of the Jews. Not a rebel, therefore, but a man with a powerful message that threatened only those who had something to lose. Yet, in the end, Pilate finds himself forced to sacrifice him to maintain order in Jerusalem, fearing a revolt that he could not have stopped with the few troops at his disposal. If you feel the weight of these words, I invite you to share this video with friends and family. Together, we can spread this story and reflect on what Jesus' sacrifice really means. The letter goes on to reveal Pilate's anguish after condemning Jesus. He recounts how, after the crucifixion, he saw the sun darken and the moon turn red. He also describes how some of the dead rose from their graves and appeared to many. "When I saw these signs," Pilate writes, "I hastened to wash my hands of the blood of this just man." Words that reveal his inner torment, his desire to free himself from the burden of that decision. It is not surprising then that Pilate felt compelled to write to the Emperor Tiberius, seeking some sort of justification or redemption for his actions. "Recent events in my province have been of such a nature that I fear they may change the fate of our nation," he confesses to Tiberius. Imagine the scene: a Roman governor, one of the most powerful men of the age, fearing that he has done something that could affect the entire empire. But why was Pilate so worried? And why did he describe Jesus with such care and detail? Perhaps because he knew that this figure would change the history of the world forever, and he felt the need to tell his version of events. And there is another important historical source that we will reveal shortly. But first, I invite you to reflect on all this. Was Pilate just a cynical politician, or is there more to it? What would you have done in his place? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to analyze other mysteries like this. It is not only Pilate's letter that provides us with clues about his existence and his role in history. There is also archaeological evidence, the famous Pilate stone, discovered in Caesarea Maritima, Israel. This stone, on which the name of Pontius Pilate is engraved, confirms that he was the prefect of Judea at the time of Jesus. A detail that makes his figure even more concrete and real, linking it to the facts narrated in the Gospels. Finally, concluding this letter, Pilate seems to be a tormented man, torn between his duty towards Rome and the awareness of having condemned a just man to death. But why did he write these words? Perhaps to seek a form of absolution, perhaps to tell the world his truth. Now, this letter is in your hands. It is up to you to decide what to believe, what to think, and how to interpret Pilate's words. But one thing is certain. You now know that Pilate was more than just a Roman governor. He was simply a man with doubts, fears, and perhaps a troubled heart.